Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Sparke Helmore Lawyers.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bayles.
Welcome back to another episode of the Black Magic Woman podcast. I am Mundanara Bayles, the host, and as always, I'd like to start by just reinforcing the ancient lands where I am right now, which is Gadigal country. This is the birthplace of not only myself, but 7 generations of my family have grown up on Gadigal country. So I feel like, this is my spiritual home, but I'm not a Gadigal person. So therefore, you'll never see me doing a welcome to country. But I just want to acknowledge the ancient lands that we're on today and also acknowledge all of the traditional owners and our beautiful elders from right across this country, and even acknowledge all First Nations peoples right across the world that are either watching on YouTube or listening to this podcast, maybe even on Virgin. So on every episode, I always hand over to my guest to do their introduction. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and the host is always kind of sharing their bio and talking, about different parts of the guest's life. And I always say, I actually love the fact that when I'm hearing the story of the guest, it's the first time, so my reaction is actually real and authentic. So I'm going to hand over to my guest today, Brother Billy Dibb. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, and I also want to thank my sister Yarika for the hookup, for reaching out to Brother Billy, and literally within not even 5 minutes, you responded. I was maybe a week. I was thinking you might get back to me. But within 5 minutes, you're like, sweet, let me know when and where I'm there. And here we are today, here in Sydney. So thanks for jumping on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Too deadly. So for our guests, and for people that don't know, your story, do you want to do an introduction? Who you are, where you come from, where you grew up?
For sure, yeah. Well, so my name's Billy Dibb. I'm a former 2-time boxing world champion and recent cancer survivor. I go figure, a boxer turned author. So I've just released my first autobiography, A True Heart, The Fights of My Life. And it's a book about, a little bit about boxing, but a book about life and overcoming the adversities of life, because you see, we all face adversities in life. And to still be here today after suffering from cancer is a total blessing. I live that way now.
Wow. And here you are sitting on this couch.
For sure.
Having a yarn with me. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
Oh, there's so much I want to unpack. Like first, were you born and raised here in Sydney?
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Sydney. My mother, she's comes from a Palestinian heritage, but she was born in Lebanon, and my father was also born in Lebanon. They migrated here in the 70s. I think my mum came here in the 80s, and then, shortly after, she gave birth to my younger brother, Nasser, or my older brother, I should say, younger brother, and then then I come along, and, so I come from a family of 5 boys, 1 girl, so there's a fair few of us, yeah.
So you're all still here, or is everywhere, or your family close
No,
by?
we're all here, my brothers are all here, so I got my brother Jihad, Imad Muhammad, Nasser Yusuf, and then my sister Sabrina.
And are you the only one that went into boxing? How did your career start? What was...
I'm not the only one in boxing.
Yeah.
My younger brother, Yusuf, followed in my footsteps.
Yeah.
My older brothers were into the rugby league situation. They loved the league when their kids were up. And my father was a major Mal Meninga fan.
Uh-huh.
And so, my father always wanted one of his sons to be a star footy player. And that's actually how I found boxing. I was at the footy field one day training, and the trainer pulled out some mitts and some pads, and I hit the pads, and I was like, man, he asked me the question. He said, have you ever boxed before? And I said, no, but I watched plenty of Rocky movies. That was really what I answered, And so he was like, you know what? I think you're onto something. And I walked into the gym and I never looked back. You know, the vision was clear. The minute that I walked in there, I knew that this was part of my destiny. This was like all part of God's plan.
Yeah. So from winning 2 world championships, and then writing your book, like what have you been doing since you finished boxing? What's life been like?
Well, you know what? To be quite honest with you, I never really stopped boxing.
Yeah.
I never really walked away. You know, there was just so much going on in my life. I started writing a book in like 2015, but this was a journey that started back in like 2004.
Yeah.
I started collecting notes from a young age and writing about, you know, certain situations that happened in my life. And then in 2015, you know, my wife Sarah passed away from cancer.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, and so then when she passed away, I sort of had a lot of time on my hands, and I thought this might be a good time to start writing. And I started writing, and then, you know, 1 year turned into another 2 years and 3 years and then 4 years, and then eventually I get to the point where I sort of put the book on the shelf in around 2019. Then I met a friend, his name was Sid, and he was like, look, you need to pull that book off the shelf and start writing again. This book needs to be released. And then I handed the book in just a few weeks shy of getting cancer myself. And then they handed it back and they said, no, we need you to write about the last chapter. And I was like, what if I'm not around to write it? And they're like, well, you've been taking notes your whole life. Continue doing that and somebody will finish it for you. I said, it's very important for me to have this book released because I want my son to know who I was. You know, if I'm going to be exiting this world, I want to leave him with something. And so please, you know, and thankfully, you know, I'm still here to tell the story. So, you know, the book got released. It's doing really well. It's actually #1 on Amazon right now.
Wow, big congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It's been #1 on Amazon for about 3 or 4 weeks, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And my goal now is to just basically, you know, inspire the youth, travel the world and try to inspire the world as much as I can to chase their greatness, because there's greatness in each and every single one of us. And there's resilience in every single one of us as well. But sometimes people don't tap into that. And it's very important that I want to use my message and my tool, which is my autobiography, to help people tap into that.
Mm-hmm. And talking about, you know, people being resilient, that was a word I heard a lot when, you know, young Quaden, my little nephew, when he was going, and he's always been going through, you know, different challenges in his life. But people are saying, you know, you got to be resilient and you got to be this, you got to be that. For Quaden, I know you was one person that was there for him. Yeah. And that's how I found, like I knew who you was, but I didn't realize you're connected to my family until you posted a video. And I think you were supporting Quaden through the time where, so for people that don't know, you know, little Quaden Bayles, 13 soon, all right? Quaden is my sister Yarika's son, and Yarika put a video on Facebook. Didn't realize, you know, that was like a plea for help. Yeah, like how do we educate children to be kind?
And you know what? In saying that just shows you how important it is to ask for help. You know, reaching out for help is a really, really important thing. It's, you know, we all go through certain things in our life and sometimes we can't get through it alone. But there's so many people out there who are trying to get through these things alone, you know, it leads to suicide and all this sort of thing. Don't do it on your own. There's people that are there for you. And, you know, when I seen Yarika's video, I was so devastated by what I saw. And I was like, you know what, I need to put out a message to her. And you know what? You wouldn't believe it, but I ended up getting like 200,000 views on that video. Like just saying, hey guys, this is my friend, Quaden. And you know what I mean? Like, and so, and I told her, contact me. I want to help.
Yeah, he's not 18. He's not an actor.
No, he's only a kid.
This is a real kid.
He's a kid.
You know how it turned out that he was 18 was at my son's 18th birthday party. Quaden was standing in front of the 18th sign with my son. Yeah. And that went viral there. Yeah. He's 18. There's the proof.
Nah, but it's just a kid.
He's just a kid. And you've, you know, kind of developed a really tight friendship. Yeah. I saw him. Was he in the gym with you? Boxing?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I invited him to the gym.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that, you know, he needed somewhere to sort of release some of that anger that's been building up with people picking on him and stuff. And I just wanted him to know that, you know what, let them pick on you, let them do whatever they want. As long as you got people like us around, we're always going to protect you. And you know, it was just a little fun thing for him in the gym. I asked Yarika to bring him. I gave him some gloves and some things to train with and that. It was just a fun thing, you know. And I love the kid, you know. When I was diagnosed with cancer, like, I didn't really get to speak to him much, but I did speak to Yuraka, and she was like, he's so devastated right now, you know, and like, that just shows you how much I meant to him and how much he means to me, because he's a beautiful kid. And I went out of my way and introduced him to my wife, my mother, my
saw
father.
the photos.
Yes, like, you know.
That's what happens, right? You become part of the family.
And that's the thing. You're like, Yuraka now treats me like I'm a family member. And so, you know, and I brought her into my home. She met my mom and dad. Yeah. And, you know, and my dad is a very loving and caring individual, you know, and so he showed Quaden a lot of love. And that's what he needs. That's what people need. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are suffering in silence, and you don't need to do that. You need to ask for help. And believe me when I tell you, you know, in my darkest moments in my life, I didn't ask for help, because I was this big, tough boxer who wasn't supposed to ask for help. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I hurt a lot of people along the way. And then, you know, eventually once I asked for help, they helped me heal. And that's what you need to do. Like, you know, there's no shame in asking for help.
Yeah.
I'm actually just writing a book right now.
Another book?
Yeah, another book. So this is a kid's book though. And the kid's book's called It's Okay to Cry. And it's more like targeted at boys, because, you know, young boys have this thing like, don't cry. Yeah. You know, I don't cry. Like, you're
meant to be, and it's with men as well. They grow into a man, and they've been...
You're a man. But look, the one thing that helps me is sometimes shedding a few tears.
Releasing it.
It releases that tension, that, like, you know, that anger that's inside. And so I wrote this book based on certain situations that have happened to me, because I remember a long time when my grandmother, we were at an engagement party, she dropped dead. They revived her, thankfully, but she passed away now. But when she did die at that point, I was crying, and somebody said to me, stop crying like a little girl. You're a man. You're supposed to be champion one day. And they, right in that moment, through their words, they robbed me of the ability to cry for the next like 4 years. I wouldn't cry. Matter of fact, when my grandmother actually did pass away, I was 14 when that happened. When she actually did pass away, I was just bordering 18. Everyone was crying. Nobody. I like held my tears back.
You found it hard to cry in
I couldn't
public
cry
because of those words.
No, because I was like, I'm a man. I'm going to be champion fighter. You know, I'm not supposed to cry. And then my cousin says to me, how you doing? I was like, I'm all right, man. He's like, you know, it's okay to cry. The minute he said that, it's like he gave me permission.
Released.
I just burst into tears, and we hugged it out and whatever. And he's like, you know, it's all right, man. You got to get the tension out, you know. And so I wrote a book based on things that have happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
And even though it's a kid's book, like, it's a book that shows kids that, you know, it's okay to cry and it's okay to release your emotions, because that's going to prevent you from doing silly things.
Of course.
And eventually I want to work on another book after that, which is going to be about suicide prevention. And you know, if there's a human standing at the top of a building, it's about to jump. He has no emotion in that moment. He's not thinking about anything besides I'm jumping. Yeah. He's not going to cry. If he cried, he would stop in that moment and be like, I'm not going to do this. Because that's what crying does. It releases an endorphin that, you know, helps you release that emotion.
Yeah. I love the fact, you know, it's even quite heavy for some of our listeners and viewers, and I acknowledge that, especially for our mob, where we have the highest rate of youth suicide than anywhere else in the world.
Wow.
So I'm glad we're talking about it, but this is something that we deal with every day in our communities as black fellas. Last week, there was 3 funerals, and all 3 were suicide. So I just want to acknowledge that I know some of this content might be triggering for our mob that are listening. There is a national hotline now called 13 Yarn, where you can ring a black fella, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander person who's qualified, that can talk to you 24 hours, right? 7 days a week, 13 Yarn. I'll make sure that number's in our show notes. But everyone else, there's also Lifeline as well.
And you know what? Also, I'm serious, and I'm not just saying this. If you have an issue in your life and you're dealing with some sort of adversity or obstacle and you need some help, my Instagram page, if you message me, I will message you back. I promise.
With over 70,000 followers, this brother.
I don't care. I will message you back.
Wow.
Because, you know, it's all about helping people.
Yeah.
You know, in times of darkness, people need help, and I'm there to help. That's why I'm here today. Yeah. Maybe God spared me to be an advocate to help other people. And if I can help you in any way, then I'm here. And I'm telling you directly now, I'm here, I'm available. Reach out to me and I will help.
And I want to just say this now, with having a book, right, you've got an opportunity, you go to schools.
Yes.
You go to all these different festivals, you know, there's kind of the speakers, writers, authors, right, kind of circuits where you go out and kind of not just promote the book, but you get to share kind of these insights that most people don't get to hear after just reading a book unless they have a conversation with you. Has anyone in particular, maybe an author, but has anyone in particular inspired you to write a book? Or is this something you just did? You knew you had to do it?
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't inspired by anybody to write the book. I just felt like God had given me a platform throughout the journey of my life. And I feel like I need to use that platform to help others. That was the whole thing. The whole thing was that, like I said, the book is a little bit about boxing. No doubt about
That's
it.
your life.
That was my
it was
career.
a big part of your life.
Boxing gave me the platform to be who I am today. But the book is a message. It's why I say when I go to schools and I told the teachers, I said, look, I'm happy to come and speak at your school for a fee. But what I want you to do is I want you to purchase a certain amount of books, because when I leave today, I know everyone's going to be on a high. But when I leave 2 days later, 3 days later, people forget. I go, but if you look at my book, you're not going to forget. The kids are going to read and they're going to be like, you know what? Billy said such and such, and now I'm reading in his book. I'm not telling you anything that I wouldn't do in my life. What I've written in my book is what I've been through and how I've dealt with it.
Yeah.
And there's a clear message in that book. And the book is, that everyone in life will go through some sort of adversities. The main message that is that have a vision, be consistent in your approach, and you will only find success. That's been the whole, the whole journey of my life. Everything that I've ever wanted, I've worked hard for. Nothing came easy. I was very consistent in my approach, and I always arrived at that point of success. That's why I've actually created this brand called Believe.
Tell us about the merch, the apparel.
Yes, I created a brand called Believe, which is my name, Billy, and then VE on the end of it. And the slogan at the bottom is vision, consistency, success. And the message is clear. It's about believing in yourself, because the truth is that it doesn't matter if you're a young boy or a young girl and you have a dream and somebody shoots your dream down. It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what you think. If you think you can be a world champion, you will. If you think you want to be a doctor, you will. If you want to be a lawyer, you will. You want to be a garbage cleaner, you will. It's whatever you want to be in your life. And the message is that regardless of whatever you want to do in your life, make sure you be the best at it, or do the best that you can to be the best at it. Live with no regret. It's like, there's so many things, so many examples out there. Even Anthony Mundine, he leaves rugby league. Everyone tells him, you're crazy. You're walking away from $600,000. Guess what? Who cares? He walked away, he gave it a go, and he became a 3-time world champion and a legend in Australian history.
Yeah.
And he set the bar and example for many. Look, boxing Australia is where it is today because of Anthony Mundine. Let's be honest.
Wow, too deadly. Big shout out to my brother Choc. Interesting, on LinkedIn the other day, I woke up and I said to my husband, hey, Choc just messaged me on LinkedIn. Just said, what's happening? I said, Braz, not much. What are you doing? It's the same. And I'm thinking, maybe he might know that I'm going to have his sister on my podcast. And I haven't even reached out to you. So, brother, the call-up is coming. But he's doing well in construction. He's got a few businesses.
I'm happy for him.
I'm going to be talking to his sister about their organisation, community, disability services that they're doing here in Sydney and the opportunities they're giving to not just Aboriginal people with employment. A lot of other people are now working in their organisation. So I'm going to have a yarn with Kelly Mundine on another episode. But in terms, Billy, right now, here you are in Sydney. When you think about it, you're living the dream now. You've recovered. You're recovered now. What do they say with cancer? Is it 5 years after remission?
Look, I got to get checkups every couple of months.
Yeah.
They did tell me that, look, there's a chance that you could relapse, but we'll work on that when you get there, if that happens, So I just live my life now with thought process. Look, to be quite honest with you, when I was like at the peak of my career, hanging out with like Mike Tyson, all these people, 50 Cent and all that, I thought I was living. Really, the truth is all I was just existing at that point, And so I made a decision on March the 6th, when the doctor told me I was in remission, I made a decision right then and there to start living my life. Stop worrying about things, because the truth is I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never drank alcohol. I've never drank any alcohol. I've never taken a drug in my life. So I was like, how did I get sick? Like, what was it? Where did this come from? And the only thing that I could put it down to be honest with you, was the stresses of life. All the things. And
they say that they say cancer is a killer, stress is a killer, right?
So I used to stress about a lot of things.
Yeah, not being able to deal with it.
I used to let a lot of things that people said weigh me down. But I made a decision right then and there. I'm like, I'm gonna start living my life. There's only two people that are important to me right now, outside of my mother and father and my siblings, is my wife and my son. And I got to do everything in my power to be there for them every single day. And so nothing else matters at the moment besides the fact that I'm alive and I'm well and there's no stresses.
And I am so excited for people to finally hear this yarn on this podcast, and mainly because a lot of our mob, like whether you're black, white, doesn't matter, that there's so much commonalities. What you've gone through, I'm sure people that are listening or watching this podcast either have been through it or currently going through it, and here they are, listening to this conversation, and hopefully they start to make decisions that are positive, that are going to do, that's going to do well for them and not think that they're on their own. And I think sometimes life does get to a point where people feel they got nowhere to go or no one to turn to, or they've got so much pride they don't want to let anyone know the situation that they're in. So I can't even stress it, enough for people that are listening, that if you are going through a rough time, like Brother Billy's already said, hit him up on Instagram, have a yarn, reach out to people in your family. Recently was It's Okay Day, and I think Are You Okay Day? And it's one day where I see a lot of people online, big billboards on the back of buses.
It should be okay every day.
But that's what I was going to say. Then the next day,
it should be.
There's no more people talking about it.
I spoke at a Are You Okay Day event, when the day was on, and I told people, I said, look, you expect me to be big and tough because I'm a boxer and all that, but I said I've had a lot of issues in my life and I've needed to ask for help. And now, if I have a problem, I ask for help all the time. I don't just bottle things in anymore. It's really, really important to reach out. It's okay to have problems, we all got problems, People think, oh my God, you're a 2-time world champion. What kind of problems could you have? Believe me, we all have issues, you know what I mean? We all have problems.
So you said you got a son.
Yeah.
How old is he?
My son will be 4 on November the 21st.
Oh, is he still a little fella?
He's a little kid, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a champ.
And can I ask, is he into boxing?
He loves it.
He loves it.
Drives me crazy.
So I'm thinking of, you got Costa Zoo now with his 2 boys.
Yeah, Tim Zoo.
Yeah. What do you think about, your little fella taking up boxing? Is there something you can see him doing?
I mean, look, he's got the natural ability. Like, it blows my mind the way he throws punches. Like, I even took him to a karate class yesterday because I'm like trying to pull him away from boxing. And the karate teacher was like, wow, he really knows how to throw punches. And I was like, yeah, it's a long story. But from the minute that he was born, it's like everybody had this whole boxing thing. It wasn't me pushing it upon him, but now it's like every single night.
It's in his blood.
He's like, Dad, I need to fight Spider-Man. Or Dad, I need to fight Hulk. And I'm like, so he's got all these toys and he makes me hold him and he boxes them.
Yeah.
He's got to put my gloves on, Dad. Dad, can you introduce me to the ring, Dad? I swear, you see, he hides behind the wall. And then I got to say, like, fighting out of the blue corner. We got Leif the Lion, dude. And he comes out kissing his glove. And it's like he knows exactly how the lowdown is, He knows about, because I've taken him to the fights and he goes to the weigh-ins and stuff. So he's like, I need to weigh in, Dad. Dad, get the scale, Dad. And then he does like the whole thing. And then he goes like, I need to stare down. So he stares down his toys. And
so we might see him one day. Who knows?
Like the thing is that I'm not going to push him into it, but I'm not going to push him away.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, kids need to, chase their dreams. And that's like, this is actually a message to parents out there. If you have a son or a daughter who aspires to be something, don't gun them down. Lift their spirits, push them towards it, because at the end of the day, let them try and fail. And as long as they've tried, they'll never regret, So like, I remember when I was a kid and I was telling my dad, I'm going to be champion of the world one day. And my dad would be like, Dad, there's a lot of people out there in the world who are doing boxing. We'll see how you go,
It didn't crush you, but it was just lightly letting you know.
But he was telling me, but you need to go to school, make sure you get a good education, and you need to, like, if you find a work one day. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to need to work because boxing is going to be what I do. All right, we'll see, But then my mom was like, same thing, but they always supported me. My dad would come to all the fights and everything. Whether he believed I could be world champion, I don't know. But then when I was, man, I remember the look on his face when I won it, like, to see how proud my dad was, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I just did that for you,
Dad. A moment you'll never forget.
Yeah, no, I'll never forget their moments. And so, like, I'm so glad, like, that the camera was clear because people captured some really nice shots of my dad. I remember my dad had a really bad back when I was fighting for the world title. Like he couldn't barely even walk. He got into the ring and picked me up on his shoulders, you know, like just shows you the adrenaline that he had in him at that point.
Yeah.
He was such a proud dad. He's like, yeah, my dad. And you know what? I'm going to tell you a story real quick because the first world title fight that I ever saw live was Anthony Mundine versus Antoine Eccles. And Chuck organized me to have like ringside seats. I was 3 rows back. And when I seen Chuck win that world title, I was like, man, this is exactly what I'm going to do. It's what I've been telling everybody I'm going to do. And when I fought for my first world title, you wouldn't believe it, but it was on the undercard of Anthony Mundine. And he fought Crazy Kim in Newcastle. Yeah. And so me and Anthony will forever be connected.
Wow.
And like people don't know the generosity that this man has. Like the generosity that Chuck has, you know, what he did for me as a kid and just the support that he's showed me throughout my life has just been unbelievable.
Man.
I remember being a kid and be like, Chuck, can you come watch me train? I was like, yeah, you know, like at the time, Anthony Mundine was like Anthony Mundine, you know, and he turns up to the gym to watch me train. Like I'm just a kid, but he showed me support.
He was there.
100%. That's why I hold him dear to my heart. I really, really do. I hold him dear to my heart. He's somebody very special to me and he'll always be like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want this yarn to end, but I do need to let you go. I just want to say, you know, Australian boxing today, you know, who would have thought? No Limit.
Yeah.
You got the Rose brothers.
100%. They're doing great
killing
things.
it.
They got great things.
You know, they've kind of taken it to that next level. So when you think about this generation and the younger generation that are coming through the boxing, even the female boxing, Chanel Dargan, who was on this episode, on this podcast, just for women coming through as well, the opportunities. So look, I want to say to you, I feel absolutely privileged to just sit here on this couch and have this yarn with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and thank you for being the best, you know, for the best support and someone for Quaden to be able to look up to.
It's my absolute honor.
It's too deadly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And if there's any one last words, especially, you know, for young people that are going through any rough times or challenges, what would it be? What's your like kind of words of wisdom if you could leave them with?
My message is very, very clear. There's 2 things. Number 1, believe in yourself. Doesn't matter what anybody says. Doesn't matter what mom says, dad says, the neighbor says. If you believe you can do something in your life, go out there and do it. Chase that dream. And the other thing is that once you do find that dream, the vision needs to be very clear, be very consistent in your approach. And I promise you, you will only find success. You will only find success because with hard work and dedication, anything is possible.
Man, my man, Billy Dib on the couch here with Black Magic Woman. Thank you very much. And I'm just excited for everyone to be able to hear this story. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. How was that? I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye for now. If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.